Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, I'm picking the wrong shit, dog. Who that? All right, can I get on? Let's see if I'm on live. Finally, there we go. Let's see if I'm live now. Let's see if I can hear myself. I don't know if nobody can hear me for real. Let's try this one more again. The internet is so distracting. Um, oh my God, this is so. Oh wait, that's why I didn't say go live on here. Hold on. Man, yo. There we go. All right, now let's try to find it. Hmm. There we go. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Um. All right, that's gonna be what it is. Oh, I actually think I have a pretty good show tonight. I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh my God, yo! I tell you, there gotta be a better way to do this on There gotta be a better way to do this. On Chrome, whatever. That's not Chrome. Whatever this is. There, this is what it is. All right. So, where my notes at? Let's talk about something real quick. So, today's conversation, yeah, I'll be essentially talking to myself in these live videos. They're gonna make for some dope ass clips at some point. I'll tell you that. As a matter of fact, you know a commercial about to come up. So, play that real quick. First of all, I can't hear myself. So, if anybody's watching right now, can you tell me if you can hear me? I don't think I'm on mute. But I want to make sure I can be heard at the same time. Right, no commercial. Look at that. Can you hear me? Hello? Let's see. Oh my God. Thank you. All right, Shaw said he can hear me. All right, we lit. So, this conversation I'm starting tonight is like how everyone is a slave to the empire. And I got a couple of dope videos for everybody to watch. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube, Facebook. I wish I could like see everybody like clearly. I can't, but it is what it is. Like I have to jump through hoops to what was I looking at? Oh, here we go. Bam. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the first couple of weeks I talked about how the Democrats are trash. I talked about how the Republicans are trash. I actually forgot what I talked about last week. That's how goddamn tired I was. But essentially, I'm going in a direction that we need unity. We need to kind of do things over, to kind of look at things from a different perspective where we can get together and kind of make a break from the norms that we've been accustomed to, that people are telling us to be accustomed to. I don't think that these norms are something that are norms. I think a lot of things that happen in the world today, like for instance, and I'm not going to make this a big conversation now, I'm just going to touch on it. I don't feel like you could be a legit Christian and vote for Kamala Harris because of what's happening in Gaza. I just feel that way, right? I feel that way because you can't see a whole bunch of innocent people die and somehow justify it. There's no justification for that. And they normalize it because now the more brutal you are, the more you can prove that you're winning the war. And this didn't start in Israel. This didn't start this year, this century. This started, way back when. The more people you kill, the more people are going to be like, well, they're actually doing their thing. Meanwhile, when you think about it, we're not supposed to be doing that anyway. So I just can't see how you could be a bona fide Christian and say I'm gonna support somebody who supports genocide, whether peripherally or directly. I can't reconcile that. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is talking about how we are slaves to empire, right? And a lot of things that makes us slaves to empire is the fact that we start to justify and normalize things that we aren't supposed to justify and normalize. And I can't wait to get to the part where I'm actually going to be discussing how the exploited exploit the exploited in order to to go to their country or to get a product or something like that. And like this, and a lot of things that we talk about here are so surface level, because I'd be really wanting to get deep, but I don't know. I mean, we may have to have in-person conversations for that. But the thing is, because we're so sleep, this is where the term woke comes from. Because we're so sleep, they're marching us like the Pied Piper to the water so that we can drown, and we don't even know that we're marching. We just feel like people are starting to race now. How fast can I get to the ledge? You know what I mean? One of the best things that was said in the Matrix was when Morbius said to Neo, there were people who will fight to protect, die to protect the Matrix that we live in. There's no better example than what's happening now in like the managerial class and stuff like that. So there's a video that I want to play. Now in this video, if you haven't checked out this podcast, you have to check it out. It's called Bad Faith by Breonna Joy Gray. She's a former lawyer, turned political analyst. She used to work for Bernie Sanders and his campaign in 2016. And one of the things that I liked about the woman that she interviews, she always gives people the business to this Asian woman. I love her. I can't wait to have her on my podcast. I'm working towards it. I'm working towards that. And anyway, she's gonna talk about how we kind of just, you know what? I'm just gonna let her say it. So I'm gonna share this video real quick, and I'm gonna stop it at some point to comment on it because I think it's um I think it's very, very interesting what she was saying and how she articulated it in a way that's like against the man, the what they call it, the professional managerial class. So especially people like me, right, who can work a job, who have a career, or whatever the case may be, and we could just be like, oh, I'll be fine. But so we don't see any. So we try to keep promoting the status quo in order for us to we keep promoting the status quo in order for us not to lose the benefits that we've gained. And I don't think that that's something. Excuse me. I don't think that that's something we should be doing. We should be able to have the wherewithal to look outside of ourselves. But I know it's hard to do that. Um, I'm gonna let her start this video right now, and then I'm gonna chime in a couple of minutes. But let's start off with what she got to say. Let's do that. Let's do that. That was wrong. That was also wrong. I like this right here. Play it. Also, let me know if you guys can hear the video. If you guys can't hear the video, let me know. I can't even hear the video. Can you guys hear the video? What just happened? No, you got
to law school and going into 250,000.
this is my bad. Let's start it right from right here. Let's start it
Yeah.
over.
So this goes back to something you said earlier, which is that sometimes I don't think it's going to be a voluntaristic, thing that you and I can do necessarily, but it might be happening with regards to the bubble of higher education, which is that the viciousness of capitalism has made the hoarding of wealth for a certain age group, a certain education level, so extreme that even young aspirational white collar workers who wanted to become the PMC can't get into it. The student loan debt was predicated on the student.
And PMC, if you guys don't know, means the professional managerial class. So the class of people that are like middle management, they're not the executives, they're not the big directors, or maybe even like director down to like supervisor. And those are the people who fight for the status quo. Those are the people in the matrix that keep making the matrix exist. That's that group of people that they may not make anything shift in society, but they keep society the way it is. So that's the people, that's your manager or your manager's manager. Your manager's manager is not going to do anything to jeopardize his job. They act like they're for the cause, but when the cause is going to have to cause and it causes them to lose their job, they will turn like in a heartbeat. So the professional managerial class is that group of people who, the white collar people, the people who are not in the streets, the people who don't have the edge of the streets, the people who are trying to be in the that high middle class. These aren't the people that move the needle, but they keep the thread locked in. That's the professional managerial class. I'm going to keep going.
Loan institution was predicated on the fact that you could find good jobs after going to law school and going into $250,000 of debt. There are very, very few good jobs now. All the professions are closing down hiring, even though they say like our unemployment level is so low, like good jobs are very, very difficult to find. And so that layer of the recruiting of the recruits who are burdened by this incredible student loan debt, their eyes are being opened to how the
Yeah.
system is rigged against them. And maybe that, but what I think is really scary about this whole situation too is that when you get this kind of mass disillusionment with the powers that be, you get more authoritarian on top. And that's why I
Mm.
think the liberal authoritarians are even more demanding of conformity to the DNC.
So let's put a pause in that real quick. 'Cause what you said was deep as hell. Okay? What she said is that she notices that a lot of the people who want to be in the professional managerial class realize, oh, we've been hoodwinked. They told us go to school, get this degree, get this diploma, be in debt. You're going to be able to pay it. Then for the last 25 years, the wages versus like inflation is not matching. So that $100,000 debt that you got a few years ago, 20, in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, you could pay that off in 10, 15 years. You can't do that now. Because it's not, now to get the same education, it costs so much. And a lot of colleges were free in the 70s and the 60s. And they made that more capitalism. We're going to get into the capitalism in a minute. But now you start to see the people who are rising up out of that professional managerial class or who aspire to be in that professional managerial class. And they're like, oh, nah, I'm not with this. So now if the glue that's been holding the system together is like, nah, I don't want it, then what's the outcome going to be? The outcome is going to be we need more control. We need more censorship. We need more of you following the crowd, because if you don't, we're going to lose control of the base of our movement, which is that professional managerial class. And that's why you see more crackdowns on misinformation, disinformation, more attacks on free speech. This is all happening because they're losing their grip on that middle class. And they're not losing the grip on that part of the middle class that is like disillusioned or whatnot. They're losing their grip on them because the middle class is usually the ones that set the trend for everybody else. The middle class is going to be the one that buys more than the lower class. So then the people higher up are going to do things to sell to the middle class. The middle class people are the people that hire the people in the lower class. They're the one who interviews them. They're the one who teaches them. So the middle class is actually the glue to the society, and they're losing their grip on them. So that's why things are becoming a lot more dictatorial, as I've been trying to preach here a little bit here and there. But let's go.
And that's why I
Mm.
think the liberal authoritarians are even more demanding of conformity to the DNC and the Democratic Party line. And there will always be that level of pundit that you can't compete with because you're not going to say the things that you need to say. But,
Mhm.
dot 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 will have like $1 million salary. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
you're poor, I'm poor, but we'll never be
Mhm.
recruited like that. And then as the younger people get more desperate, those carrots are going to look more enticing. That's that this is what's really scary about the whole situation, and it's destabilizing of a democratic polity. Like if people really cared about democracy, this is not how wealth would be distributed. This is not how education would be configured. But I do think that what you were saying about this mass disillusionment, that could, with higher education, that could turn. But I don't think that's going to dissolve the endowments of Yale, Harvard, or Princeton until.
So let's put a pause on that really quick. And one of the things that she's also talking about right now is mass disillusionment. Mass disillusionment is something that I feel like we've had a mass black disillusionment since the 60s, right? Maybe even before then. But I say after they shot and killed Martin Luther King, black people. We have a few people that's a loud minority that's like, nah, we gotta vote Democrat. We gotta do that. Everybody else is like, man, it's some bullshit. We knew. We've been knowing this some bullshit, right? So check it out. The mass disillusionment part, right, starts to whittle away the self-censorship that you see happen. The self-censorship happens in large part because people are like, I don't want to mess up a good thing. So with the mass disillusionment, you have people saying, this is some bullshit. I gotta say something. But then those are people right now who are like 26 to like 31, 32. They're like, this ain't what we signed up for. You said go and do, I'm not doing this. But now you got the kids who are 22 to like 17. And guess what's gonna happen? Things are gonna be so desperate, they're not gonna know any better. So when the carrot is dangling in front of them, pause, they're gonna be like, yo, I gotta get on this. And I'm willing to compromise my values, self-censor myself, throw my friend under the bus, talk shit about my brother in order for me to get to the next stages. You understand what I'm saying? This is not by accident. This is chaos by design. Chaos by design. This is chaos by design. I'm telling you, this is chaos by design. And it hurts, man. It hurts so bad because we're going to be trying to get people out of the mud when or they don't even know they're in the mud. They're like, what? This mud clean. This mud is clean. What you mean? Because they don't even know they're in the mud. So let me put on another video. And I'm going to play this whole video. Because this video, man, I'm telling you, this video good money. And this guy, I follow a lot of what he's saying. He preached to me like he preached. I be thinking he talking to me. So I'm going to play this video and I'm going to stop it along the way. We're going to do a couple of more videos, but let's just see what he got to say real quick. And yeah, I think this video going to hit, and you're going to kind of understand a little bit. Now that we understand like the mass of disillusionment and whatnot, we're going to understand like why that Western civilization has like a major character flaw, and we're going to talk about that. And this is going to be another part of how we are slaves to the empire. A part of that slavery to the empire is being under that spell that, yo, in order for me to get ahead, I have to do these things. In order for me to get ahead, I have to do these things. And I want you guys to see what he says so that you can understand like how when you're in school and then you kind of fall into the, oh, this is how life is supposed to be and how things are supposed to be, you're going to see the difference. And that difference only comes when you hit a moment of, this shit is not really working for me. You know what I mean? So anyway, let's get to this video real quick. Let's get to this video.
Well, I think that probably the difference between my critique and maybe the critique of others who criticize the West is that I don't really differentiate between colonization and imperialism and racism and white supremacy, feudalism, neo-capitalism, and so on. I don't differentiate these things from each other, and I don't differentiate these things from the culture and the character of the West itself. All of these things are manifestations of Western character. That's what drives these policies and these practices and these ideas. They're all just versions of each other. For instance, the same colonizer mentality is actually applied across every arena in the West. The mentality of exploitation of others' resources and the dehumanization and subjugation of those whose resources they are, while feeling completely entitled. You see this across every sector in the West. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about minerals or precious metals or gems or crops or what have you, or if you're talking about labor, or if you're talking about talent and creativity. These are all natural resources. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about these resources being in another country or being in your own country. The point is, they're not your resources. And you exploit and pillage and profit from them. And you marginalize and subordinate the actual owners of the resources.
Now let's talk about that real quick. Just real quick. Because I'm gonna make that hit the point that we were just talking about, and then I'm gonna make it hit the point that he was talking about. So He just said that the ideology of Western civilization, aka Western European civilization, is that of colonialism. And what happens is with that colonialism, you see it when you have to go to school. So you're being exploited while you're in school. You're being exploited so that you can get a job, that they can tell you how much you can get paid and blah, 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 blah. They're exploiting you. But they don't, but it's not because this person or that person is inherently bad. They're following the system of exploitation, which is modeled on the system of colonialization. And you have to understand that this is happening on a regular basis in everything that you do. He's going to articulate this so well. In everything that you do. And one of the things that I wrote about on my notes, I got notes, is that they're going to take things from actual natural resources. So you took them up from the gold, the cobalt, the diamond, the oils, all the way to your ideas, man. You're going to write a book and somebody's going to plagiarize your book and make way more money off of your idea. Do you know that song from The Lion King? In the jungle, the mighty. They got that song from this white group who got it from these black guys in Africa. And they made millions off that song. That's the type of reason. How many rappers and singers at TLC, Tony Braxton, how many people did you hear are they getting exploited as a musical artist? One of the realest things that Cameron ever said is when Jim Jones was like, yo, man, Cameron did me dirty, blah, blah, blah. Cameron, you know what Cameron said? Nah, I was wilding. But that's what they taught me to do. This is how they said the game went. Because it's a culture. It's an ideology. Whenever I hear somebody say, well, this is how you got to do it, I'm like, why? We don't have to do it like that. The only reason why you feel like you have to do that is because you feel like you have to be accepted by somebody whom you could benefit from, so you have to sacrifice your inherent value. That's all because you have been manipulated by the system to do things that you probably wouldn't do otherwise because you're a slave to it. But I digress. We're going to keep going with this video because, boy, y'all about to give me the vent.
So, I mean, look at America. Whatever unique cultural contribution that's come from America, it's come from the poor, from the underclass, from African Americans, from poor whites, from immigrants, and so on. From gospel music to blues music to R&B, to jazz, rap, and hip hop, and so on. And then on the other side of the coin, bluegrass, country music, rockabilly, rock and roll, and so on. All of these things came from the poor, from the working class. And from John Steinbeck to James Baldwin, your best writers all emerged from poverty and deprivation. Historically, the same goes for most of your acclaimed athletes, your entertainers, and your performers. And then your style and fashion and slang and everything. Creativity has always come from the poor. The rich mine the resources of their talent the same way that they would mine copper or lithium or gold and then profit from it, enrich themselves, and claim it and act like it's part of their own greatness. You claim these talents and creativity as American, but the people themselves whose talent and creativity it was were all people from a people whom America abused and treated like nothing. They came from people who your society and your system treats as if they have nothing to contribute. Yet their contributions are the only things that gave you any kind of culture at all. They don't represent America. They overcame what America did to them. And even still, more often than not, they died penniless. This is a colonizer mindset, you know, record.
And I'm going to pause that right there one more time. And I'm going to say this. Capitalism is often used as a term or interchangeably with colonialism. Capitalism is often code for colonialism. Oh, we want to open up the markets. We want free markets. This country, we're trying to bring democracy and capitalism to this country. No, that just means we want to be able to exploit you with the companies that we own, because America is actually a fascist society. You wouldn't think so, because we have free democracies, but we aren't economically free, which we're going to talk about in another video coming up. So think about this. If you work and you have no equity with that job, then you're being exploited or potentially exploited. If you work and you're not getting any equity from the work that you do, I don't care if you are, a secretary. I don't care if you are a CEO. CEOs get equity. I remember one time I worked for a company. I worked for MasterCard. Fuck it. And when the MasterCard went public, I learned, God, these executives don't get paid a lot of money. But then I learned they got paid in equity in the stock itself. Thousands and thousands of shares when the company went public. So whatever MasterCard was in 2006, the stock versus what it is now, equity. Capitalism doesn't give equity to the people who are doing the grunt work. That's why they union bust. You don't get equity. You do the job for me, and we pay you pennies. Yeah, it's not free labor, but compared to what I make, compared to what Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, for that to pay me $150,000, $200,000 a year, I might as well be working for free if you compare that 200,000, 150,000 to whatever the billions that they make. It's another form of there's another plantation. My best friend told me this years and years ago. You know what he said to me? I hate capitalism because the inherent ideology of capitalism means you have to capitalize off of somebody. If you have to capitalize off of somebody, somebody's winning and somebody's losing. But we're going to move on from that right now. Let's move on from that. Let's let my man finish talking right here.
Producers, agents, lawyers, publishers, what have you. These groups of talentless leeches who feel entitled to get rich off of the creative resources of others. They're exactly the same as colonizers who feel entitled to get rich off of the raw minerals and the natural resources in, say, Africa or Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, and so on. It's the same mindset. You yourself offer nothing. You contribute nothing. You create nothing. You just exploit and use and devour. It's parasitic. It's the feudal system, just manifesting in various ways. And this runs throughout the whole so-called civilization. You can even see it manifesting on an individual basis. I mean, to one degree or another, individuals of a society or of a civilization are just fractals of that society, of that civilization, which is why you find so many Westerners who are mediocre, materialistic, greedy, entitled narcissists. And they even approach interpersonal relationships with a colonizer, feudalistic, self-supremacist mentality. Main character syndrome, they call it. This may be where your whole so-called crisis of masculinity comes from, to be honest, because none of these attributes of your so-called civilization are masculine traits. But that's another topic for another day. The point is, the same thing drives all of it. Drives colonization, drives racism, drives white supremacy, drives feudalism, drives neoliberal capitalism, drives neocon warmongering, drives union busting, drives exploitation of artists, on and on and on. It's the fundamental character flaw of the West.
Now, the one thing I want to say about this as well is that this is why whenever we get a movement, this is why whenever we have something that's important that's happening that can help bring a lot of people out of the situations that they're in, it always gets thwarted. I can't even say that word right, but something always happens. Something always comes up. Somebody always gets assassinated. You never realize that? You ever realize that? Why that is? Why you think? That's usually because they don't want you to succeed, bro. They don't want that to be something. They don't want you to be something. They don't want you to be in a space where you feel like, hey, man, we all coming together. We're making it work. That's antithetical to their ideology. And their ideology is about winning at all costs. How's that going to happen if we all winning together? Then they can't win. And they're playing on a different team than you and I. Totally different team. But let's get back. I got another video I want you to listen to. I'm going to actually play this one through. Now I might stop him once or twice. And he's talked so good about the empire of capitalism and how and why we're kind of fighting so hard to keep Gaza the way it is, because if Gaza gets free, then the Middle East gets free. If the Middle East gets free, it messes with capitalism. But let's that's what he said. We're gonna talk about it in a minute. Oh wow. Let's get to this video real quick. This is a good one, y'all. This is a good one. This is a good one. This is a good one for real. All right, let's do it.
I'm always asked to talk about ecology, when really what I want to talk about is capitalist imperialism. And the two are just are a piece of the same problem, right? The ecological crisis is ultimately playing out along colonial lines, right? We know that it is the countries of the imperial core that are overwhelmingly responsible, and specifically their ruling classes who control the means of production and energy systems and investment, et cetera, are overwhelmingly responsible for the excess emissions that are driving climate breakdown, right? We know that's a fact. We also know it's a fact that the global south suffers the overwhelming majority of the impacts of climate breakdown, right? The people who have contributed literally nothing to the crisis whatsoever, not contributed a small amount, contributed nothing, right? And it's not just, of course, climate breakdown that we face. There's also other dimensions of the ecological crisis. And here too, we see the same thing playing out. When it comes to excess material use in the world economy, overwhelmingly, it's due to excess material use and accumulation in the imperial core. Half of the material use that's used in the core is net appropriated from the periphery, from the territories of the global south, right? Which causes severe damage. You don't see this damage in Sussex or in Finland. You see it in the Congo. You see it in Indonesia, right? You see it in Bolivia, in the frontiers of extraction. The core benefits and everyone else suffers. The ecological crisis represents processes of colonization and appropriation, and also is a disaster that's playing out along colonial lines. I think that's really important to spell out. And if we're not attentive to those colonial dimensions, I really think we're fundamentally missing the point. We're fundamentally missing the point. The other thing I want to point out here is that we're in this incredible paradox, right, where the world economy, we know, is just massively productive. Like, our productive capacities are incredible. Think of the scale of the labor that humanity has at its disposal, the resources, the technology, the factories, the energy, the materials. Incredible amounts of production to the point of breaking past ecological limits. And yet, the vast majority of the human population lives in conditions of massive deprivation. 80% of the population can't meet basic needs. So what explains this incredible paradox? It's ultimately our system of production. The social and ecological crisis that we face, which appears unresolvable, is ultimately a symptom of our system of production, capitalism, where our productive capacities, our incredible productive capacities, are organized overwhelmingly around what is most profitable to capital and what can most facilitate accumulation in the core, rather than what is obviously necessary to meet human needs and achieve our ecological objectives. And so we're in this wild place where just like, oh, solving poverty is just going to take generations, right? If we're lucky, we'll get people above $1.90 a day by the end of the century, right? The climate crisis, who can figure out how to solve this? It seems intractable. None of this is true. It's lies. These are problems that can be very easily solved and very quickly. The problem is that we don't have control over our own productive capacities because we don't have an economic democracy, right? Some of us live in political democracies where from time to time we get to elect government officials. But when it comes to the economic system, not even the pretense of democracy is allowed to exist. And that is ultimately the contradiction we face, I think, right? This is a crisis that at its root is about capitalism and can only be resolved by overcoming that fact. And the antidote to capitalism is economic democracy, that we should have collective democratic control over what we are producing, what the goals of our production are, who benefits from our production, and so on. And when we do,
I do want to pause that really quick, and I'm not going to go into detail. I do want to say I never even thought about economic democracy. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. He says it and it makes sense. Like, oh, of course this is a thing. But economic democracy is like, oh, wait a minute. We should be dictating who gets what, where, how, and how we do it. And yes, We need to have a thought experiment about how we can get this to work. That has to be a thing. Also, you know what? I'm gonna wait till you finish.
We can solve these problems quickly, right? We know exactly what to do. The problem is we don't have the power. And so I think that's, in the face of this crisis, we have to have clarity about what has to be achieved, and we have to start building the movements that are capable of achieving that. For the South, there's another element I think we have to pay attention to, which is that they need economic sovereignty, right? They need economic liberation at a national level first. The global North is overwhelmingly responsible for the crisis, but the global South, we know, also needs to engage in ecological planning, energy transition, et cetera, et cetera. How does anyone expect them to do that when they do not have sovereign control over their own resources, their own labor, their own lands, their own energy, right? Under the thumb of structural adjustment programs that prevent them from using progressive industrial policy, prevent them from using progressive fiscal policy, prevent them from using progressive monetary policy, basic tools that we know can allow them to achieve developments and ecological transition, they are effectively denied from using. What is the solution to that for the South? Is struggles for economic liberation, right? Now, I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that a struggle for economic liberation in the South is fundamentally antithetical to the capitalist world economy. Because accumulation in the core depends utterly on the cheapening of labor and resources in the global South. It depends utterly on that and has for the past 500 years. And so any attempt by liberation struggles in the periphery to achieve economic independence, to use their own resources for their own development, for their own ecological transition, for their own human needs, is destabilizing for capital in the core. And capital reacts with the most extraordinary violent backlashes. We see it happening all the time. Now it is Palestine, before it was Libya, before it was Iraq, before it was Chile, before it was Indonesia, before it was the Congo. It will never stop. It's over and over again. And I think the situation in Palestine right now, we have to understand, is not primarily a moral one. That's how we think of it. That is not how capital thinks of it. For them, it is a matter of suppressing and crushing liberation movements, because a liberated Palestine means a liberated Middle East. A liberated Middle East means capitalism in the core really faces a crisis, and they will not let that happen. And they're unleashing the full violence of their extraordinary power to ensure it doesn't. And so I think that's really what we face, right? It's the world system dimension of the violence that we're seeing. And we have to be cognizant of that, and our struggles and our resistance have to be in proportion.
And our resistance has to be in proportion.
Do the live stream show, and sometimes like my eyes, because the light was like bam right there, like my eyes afterwards.
So one of the things that I noticed, and I didn't know that I was going to do that automatically. One of the things that I noticed, what is this? I'm sorry, I'm watching somebody else's live video. I should comment on it. Like, hey, I'm watching your live video. I'm doing my live video. I don't know how to comment on it. Effort. So, what's this? I think I'm missing a video. Anyway, one of the things that I noticed, or not noticed, one of the things about that video that I liked the most was, I am missing a video, when he was saying, I never thought about, one of the things that I liked the most about the video is when he said something along the lines of, capitalism won't let, right? And I think, and I said this, our economy and capitalism abroad is the reason Americans support the imperialism without them knowing. You know what I mean? Banana republics and such. Overthrows of we could get that cheap goods. We kind of look the other way. And if you look at what's happening in Israel, they're using our tax money to basically imprison and now slaughter thousands of people, dislocate or relocate, and forced relocation is a form of genocide, millions of people. Imagine Queens. Gaza is like the size of Queens. Imagine Queens and everybody's at like a Long Island City right now. Imagine that. Imagine that. Out of control. And they destroy like 80% of all the buildings in some place that's like the size of Queens. Just put that in your mind for a minute. That's crazy. That's crazy. And we ain't doing that with our tax money. Our tax money is going abroad to pay for the subjugation of other people's resources. Think about that. And we're a slave to it. Because if we don't do it, what they say, our cell phones will cost $1 million because we're not exploiting what's happening in the Congo. So we keep buying iPhones. We keep buying Samsungs. I'm talking to you on the iPhone, looking at it from a Samsung on my Apple computer. A lot of these resources came from really bad places, yo. But all we do is just keep going along. Because I can't live without my phone. I can't live without my computer. I got to get the new phone. Because you're a slave to the capitalism, and that demand is the justification of the subjugation of people abroad and stealing their resources for dirt cheap or nothing at all. And anybody who's watching this, you're guilty of it too. And so am I. I know I'm a slave at least. At least that's the first thing, right? You got to know that you fucked up before you leave. So I know I'm a slave at this point. But golly, we just keep letting this happen. So you pay your taxes to exploit. You pay your taxes, and that money is used to exploit someone else. Then you save the money that's been taxed: sales tax, property tax, income tax, state tax, local tax, tax on the food you eat and the food you buy, the clothes that you wear. You saved a little bit of money that you have left over to go abroad. And all that money is using to destroy the country that you're going abroad to. So that at some point you can pay to sit on the beach and gain access to something that somebody else colonized and they paying you to do it when it's free right there for you. Because it's a part of the earth. You're only supposed to probably pay to travel somewhere. It's just crazy. It's crazy. All that for you to go and act superior to somebody who's being exploited just like you, but because you can afford to go to their land, they're more inferior to you. It's just it's an ever going system, man, and it's just it's just man. Sometimes I lose words for it. I said the exploited or exploiting the exploited for their exploitations. Like it's crazy to me. And this is what we do. This is the thing. This is the thing. And we just keep living in it perpetually. It's over and over and over and over and over again. This is just what we're doing. And now what? Now what do we do? What do we do different? You're living in a fantasy to think that at least 10 or 15 things that you have on or that you're watching on or that you have on your person right now is not coming from a place that's being exploited. At the same time, you're being exploited. For me, we talked about exploiting your ideology and being in the middle class, exploiting your resource, your human capital, your ideas, to how all of this fits with the colonial capitalistic society. Let me tell you, there are so many movements that could have worked. in Cuba, in the Congo. Just so many that could have worked. And somebody was assassinated, somebody was killed, somebody's government was overthrown because ain't no way you could stop this system. This system is working from a deeper place than just bombs and missiles, soldiers and airplanes. They operated from a very, 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 very cynically powerful, benevolent spirit. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I'm not saying this, that's what I feel. I know it to be true. And to fight them, we're not just fighting them with bullets and guns. We have to fight the spirit that emboldens them to be so sadistic and criminal and antithetical to what God is. And we have to do something about that sooner or later. If not, we're all going to be slaves. But it ain't going to be like how we are now. It's going to be cattle. And you're going to be in chains, eating gruel. And not just going to be us as black folks next time. It's going to be some of y'all white folk too. Some of y'all Spanish folks, some of y'all Asians. We all slaves to the system. But we're going to be slaves in whips and chains coming soon if we don't get our ideology correct. And anyway, hopefully you like this video and you share it with your friends. Put it in the inbox. Hopefully somebody can learn something from this, man. We're going stronger to the election. Next week's going to be even a more dope video. I thought tonight was dope. I hope, you guys learned something from it. So I'm going to say peace out because I got to go to the gym. And I'm supposed to go to the gym. I actually might take a nap for like 5 minutes. So let's see what happens. Later, y'all. Later. No, we can end the stream.